Hey everybody, just want to do an update on my terrarium. The 40-gallon build was a really fun video that I posted a while back, and even more fun has been choosing and situating plants. I have been putting in a lot of mosses and a couple ferns, orchids, and some of this Hoytonia, which is spreading nicely. Other than that, some of the changes that I've done is I've removed a couple things and tweaked a couple things aesthetically. I've learned some important stuff. One really cool thing that I learned is this lichen, which I originally collected for ornamental purposes, has turned out to be a great food for my isopods. I don't know if you can see that, but the isopods are really loving that stuff and have been breaking it down. And I'm excited about that, and it looks cool still. And one thing that I'm going to do today is I'm going to plant this pitcher plant. It's a tropical pitcher plant, a Nepenthes cross. It's a really neat plant. I was at the Carnivorous Plant Nursery in Sebastopol today, California Carnivores, and I found this plant. I did a lot of nature journaling and sketching while I was there, but I know that Damon from the nursery would probably kick my ass if he knew that I was gonna plant this the way that I'm about to do it in this terrarium. I'm not gonna keep it in this original pot, but I'm gonna keep it in the original soil and hope for the best. So that's one of the things that I'm gonna do today, and I'm gonna use a little bit of new soil mix that I made with charcoal that I made, and I'm gonna plant this pitcher plant up on the ledge there that you can see near the top, and there's a little hole there carved into the foam. See my other video for how to build that foam background. So I'm gonna carve into that and put this pitcher plant in there. I know this is the kind of plant, it's very slow growing, but it does reach a large size. It might eventually outgrow this terrarium. I'm not worried about that, but I just want to put it in here and put everything that I'm really interested in inside of this terrarium so I can work on stuff all together and just go for really maxing out this terrarium since I have it. So I'm going to go ahead and plant that here in the back. These things are super useful. Save any kind of plastic trays like this that you have. They're always useful, and with carnivorous plants they're especially useful because a lot of times you can use this as the tray that you keep water in. So not with the Nepenthes, but with some of the other carnivorous plants, the way to maintain their proper moisture level is by keeping 2 inches of distilled or reverse osmosis water at all times in a tray around them. So I'm going to use it here for something else, which is to unpot this. And this is a cross, a hybrid. So this is a Nepenthes robcanthii cross with the Aristolo, and I think that's spectabilis. So it's a hybrid. And I'm gonna use the container here to help me unpot this so I can resituate it. And it's in a perlite sphagnum orchid bark mix, it looks like. I actually am probably going to need to do a little bit of carving of this hole before I get to this stage. So I carved a little bit more into this niche up here to make a little bit more space for this new plant. What I found in my 15-gallon terrarium was that the niches that I carved in the foam background, the ones that are up high, once I'm using my overhead heating elements to keep my snake temperatures good, it's drying up this whole upper area. So the microclimates in the terrarium made this upper area in my 15-gallon extremely dry. And so I thought I was going to be able to grow mosses up in that area, and it's turned out that because of the heating, these ceramic bulbs, that things were drying out really fast. So I'm not planning on using the same type of heating in this terrarium, in this 40-gallon, and I think my LED light here doesn't produce very much heat. It's a great LED light from the Biodude, and because of that, I'm hoping that this area, especially with this large soil reservoir that I'm gonna create, will stay moist for the Nepenthes. So I'm gonna go ahead and plant it in there. Back here is where I'm planning on planting a Margravia that I'm getting from Glassbox Tropicals. It's a shingling plant, so the type of plant where the leaves will grow flat onto the surface it's growing up. It's not epiphytic, but it climbs and sticks onto either a background or onto wood or trees in its natural environment, and I'm really excited about that plant. So I'm going to go ahead and take some of the same substrate that the Nepenthes came with, and it looks like sphagnum moss, and stuff that down into this hole. It looks like the mix is basically just sphagnum moss, medium or fine orchid bark, and perlite. And the only thing that I really don't want in the soil mix in this terrarium is perlite, because of just for purely aesthetic reasons. So I'm going to go ahead and try to not use that, and I'm using these pieces of orchid bark because I think that will be really important for the drainage. And then I also have a little bit of this mix of my own that I made, which is So I'm also going to transplant some of this moss from the bottom up here next to the Nepenthes, and I think the hydration of the moss will be a good indicator of how much moisture there is in the substrate for the Nepenthes. At the Carnivorous Plant Nursery, a lot of the old display pots with Nepenthes had moss growing all over them, so I assume that means that the moss does well in those conditions that the Nepenthes does. So I'll use this up here because it will be a better indicator of the conditions, and it will look cool if it grows well up here. So I think that looks pretty awesome, and now the test is just going to be seeing how well it will actually grow in this location, and hopefully thrive in this location. I think it's a good thing I don't have any animals in here yet, because it gives me more flexibility around getting all of the plants in their place and growing well, especially the moss. I think with the other terrarium, the 15-gallon, I started the plants a little bit before I put the Amazon tree boa in, and I think that was good that it had a few days, but it wasn't really long enough to get things established. And at this point, some of the microclimates in the small terrarium with Amazon tree boa are set up to be ideal for that snake, and that happens to not be ideal for some of the plants, the moss in particular, which a lot of the moss I put up on the ledges in the background because I thought that would be a cool way to cover it and it would look like mossy rocks or a mossy slope. But that's actually one of the driest spots in the terrarium. With this method of using the expanding foam and a silicone layer with coco coir or other substrates stuck in, you end up with a very, very thin layer of organic matter, and it doesn't hold very much moisture unless it's constantly being bombarded with, say, a misting system, in which case I think that moss would probably do fine. But because of the way that I'm heating that terrarium to keep the conditions ideal for a snake, those areas near the top are the driest in the terrarium, and the moss is not doing that well in there. So with this terrarium, I don't have the heat on yet, and I do have lights on, but that doesn't seem to be affecting the moisture level because I only spray a couple times a day. And as you can see, this moss, so far, it hasn't been in there that long, but so far this moss is doing really well and is staying moist with only a couple of mistings, manually misting a couple times a day. So we'll see. I think that I'll try to pay really close attention to this carnivorous plant since it's a special one and cost me almost 30 bucks. So I'm gonna be really careful with it, and if it seems like it's not doing that well in here, I will move it out into something more conventional along the lines of how it was growing at the nursery. And that's it for now. I'm super excited about the progress here, and I can't wait till I get my plants from Glass Box Tropicals.